Right, boys, I haven't done one of these in a couple of days. Been missing practice or training because of that head knock. Protocol and all that comes into play, and said that I couldn't do weight training for like 3 or 4 days after that. I still snuck in a little bit of my own stuff, like just real light hypertrophy work. I've then come back, but I am not playing this weekend, so we've got an intense session coming up. If I don't play, I like to split up two high days in a row, which will be like, one will be the fast day. I'm going to go explosive, going to go do some sprints, do that sort of good stuff. And then I'm going to come back the next day, which will be tomorrow, which will be Saturday. And there I'm going to do a real intense hypertrophy session. So get the best of both. Take advantage of the fact that I haven't got a game because I can't play this week because of my head, and then next week I can't play. We haven't got a game, so I can get a good consistent program going here. Didn't film my first 2 meals because they are always now pretty much standard. If I'm not training in the morning, it's going to be that shake and it's going to be eggs. And if I do train, it'll be the other way around. But those are my 2 morning staples. The less decisions you have to make, the more disciplined you can stay, which applies to me from having to do work at home. It applies to me from having to train on. It applies to me from having to stick with my diet in the evening. So if I can not think about meals, it makes life a lot easier. I noticed that if I don't plan, I get stressed throughout the day. Mark Zuckerberg even does this with his, he goes as far as he has the exact same shirt and pants or trousers that he wears every single day, so that he doesn't have to think about it. This allows him to have more creative freedom when it comes to doing, I don't know what he does in his day-to-day life, but yeah, it gives him more ability to think because he hasn't got any decision fatigue. So anyway, I've had those 2 meals, and now we've got, this is rice, refried beans, red cabbage, tomato salsa, and chicken. And then I've made some more bone broth for tonight to have after that. But this is my meal now. I do have to head to the shop, so I might actually have a Red Bull. Not a Red Bull. Who has that? I have an energy drink before I train because it's going to be intense. Right, boys, so it turned out, first news of the commentary portion of this video is I didn't have a monster or anything like that. I just get on with it. More because I knew this session was going to be quite long in terms of, just because I had to rest a lot because it's speed work. And I didn't want to have that little crash that sometimes you can have if you have a big energy drink. And I didn't want to have just too much caffeine anyway, so I figured I'd just get on with it and just do it. So we started off this session, well, obviously with my 15-minute warm-up, did all that, felt good, and then got into this wall drill. I want to get into this wall drill, kind of explain what the purpose is for you guys, but I've realised I've just finished here, so let's just rewind and I'll go again. So the whole purpose of this is, it's not as good as a sled, and it's not a replacement for a sled. It's a different portion. So we're trying to really work on that knee drive. We're trying to keep a low shin angle so we can really drive as much pressure into the ground as possible. But in saying that, I'm not saying putting as much pressure into the ground as possible in this particular drill, but as much pressure into the ground when I am sprinting. The point of this is to drive that knee forward and then be in a position to sprint faster. It's all about that foot coming forward, so it's working that foot drive or the knee drive and a real good shin angle so you can sprint better in the future. It's not actually practicing sprint mechanics. As you can see, every time I drive, my foot's already so far behind me, which isn't good sprint mechanics. The wall drill got me really prepared and feeling good into going into these sets of sprints. So I did 8 sprints of about 20 meters, just working on that acceleration mechanics and at a high speed and actually trying to put it into practice. I broke this up into 2 sets of 4. In between each rep, I would just walk back and that would be my rest. And then in between the 2 sets, I just took a couple minutes, got my breath back and got ready to go again. There's still snow on the stadium. Absolutely ridiculous. Looks pretty cool though, right? Covers on. I'm not going to film the second set of 4. Yeah, and on top of those 4 sprints that I didn't film, I also didn't film another 4 sprints where I was working on my top speed, which were doing flying 15-meter sprints. So take my time getting up to full speed,
full speed about 15 meters, trying to keep nice and relaxed, but trying to go at full speed and work on all the mechanics that I can. Key point here is all this sprint work, I'm taking a good long rest. I'm feeling real good before I go again. I'm not starting any reps fatigued. I'm making sure I'm ready to go, because this is speed work, and as I've always said, if it's not done at 95% or higher, it's not speed work. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just maybe fast cardio kind of thing. It's not speed. You have to be performing at a real high speed, high velocity, to actually be doing speed work. Similar sort of thing, I guess, for this Olympic lift as well, because you're working such a high speed and a high skill. Remember, sprinting is a skill. You've got to work on the mechanics of it, make sure you're doing those all good. If you're doing them fatigued, you're going to mess up that skill. You're not going to perform the way you want. You're not going to get the benefits you want. So it's important to make sure you're taking a rest. And then, speaking of Olympic lifts, this is my first real delve into getting back into some consistent Olympic lifting since I basically dropped it from the program when I injured my shoulder playing sevens last year. I'm starting by just doing them all off the blocks. The idea here is that if I'm doing them off the blocks, it's a lot less pressure going through my lower back, it's a lot less fatiguing, and the idea here is that I'm going to eventually go off the ground, but this first wave I'm going to do them all off the blocks, more because I want to save myself for the other parts of my training and also for rugby. But you can see here I'm doing quite a high rep set, so this is sets of 3. It's only on 100, I think, kilos, but 3 clean and jerks is about as tiring as it can get, just as much as 4 snatches can get real tiring as well. I haven't really pushed the weight on either of these because I want to make sure I get the movement right. I don't want to learn try and relearn sloppy mechanics. I want to try and get everything perfect. And the realistic thing is that I've said that I might enter an Olympic weightlifting competition at some point this year, and if I do that, I've got time is going to be on my side. It's going to be at least like 8 months or so before I consider doing that, which means that I don't need to push the weight now. I don't need to set PRs now. I just need to keep moving well, and the weight over time will take care of itself. Often I tell all of my athletes, I don't try and make them push too much with the weight, particularly with Olympic lifting or any of the big compound lifts. We're not trying to push it too much, because if you blow all your load too early, then you've got nothing left. So better to be patient, better to view everything in the long term, and that way you're going to get better. Let's see how this last set looks. One thing I am trying to correct on these is not trying to out-turn my feet as much, because I've got real tight glutes and just a weak posterior chain. I often really out-turn my feet, and it just doesn't work really too good for me. So trying to work on those mechanics of that. Same thing for these jump squats. As you can see, as I'm jumping up, I'm trying to almost picturing in-turning my toes, so trying to point my toes at parallel, but they never end up quite at parallel because of the movement. And that's the session.
Okay, so that's that session. It felt real good to get back into that Olympic lifting. Good session. Speed / power / overall strength is not going to affect my training session today too much, and if it does, it doesn't really matter, because it's just hypertrophy. I am trying to train heavy, but doing speed work shouldn't really affect that the next day. Whereas if I'd done this the other way around, doing my heavy stuff will make me slower the next day. So it's always good to get your speed stuff when you're as fresh as possible, and then get your rep work in after that. I'd even advocate doing speed work before doing any rugby training. A lot of people, when I train my athletes, I advise them to, if I put speed work in and they have to do it on a field and they have to do it on a training day like a Tuesday or a Thursday when they're training with their club, I would have them come in 30 minutes early to the session and get some just quality speed work. If you do it at the end of the training session, I don't think you're going to get as much benefit, because you're just that more fatigued. You won't be able to work actual speed. If you're not doing anything above 95%, which, you can be forgiven for not doing it after a training session because you should have worked hard in that session. Like, even if you really try as hard as you can, speed is something that is just a finite amount of, you have a finite resource for. You can't just keep going. Today is another full body day for me. I was going to discuss why you shouldn't split your body parts into different parts, and like why I train full body 6 times a week. But I'm going to do that in another video. I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to do it, essentially today. But the video will come up for you guys tomorrow. So look forward to that. Any comments, let me know in the comments below, which is where you're always going to comment. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, really does help. I have been ecstatic with the amount of guys that have been giving the thumbs up. Keep that going, it really does help. We are growing slowly but surely. 1,500 subs coming on. None of that really matters. Just give it a thumbs up, helps the channel. After I said it doesn't matter, it does matter. It does really help. Thank you guys, I'll see you in the next video.